The FBI, get a load of this one. You're not going to believe it. You got to see it to believe it. The FBI actually just raided corporate landlords. Now, these corporate landlords, this company in particular, was caught doing rent price fixing. And what does this mean for you? So if you're tired of the landlord man, if you're tired of these rent prices continuing to increase, you got to check out this story. The FBI actually did some work. Some work. FBI raids corporate landlord and major rent pricing fixing probe. What it means for you. Let's get into this, folks. And then I'm going to show you the cost of living from that out of touch report to show you how that actually is connected here. In a dramatic turn of events that could have far-reaching implications for renters nationwide, the FBI conducted an unannounced raid on Cortland Management Headquarters in Atlanta on Wednesday, May 22nd. Listen to this. This action is part of a criminal antitrust investigation by the Department of Justice into allegations that Cortland has been involved in a conspiracy to artificially inflate apartment rents. This raid is more than just a legal drama. It's significant development that could impact millions of renters, including those in Rhode Island who have been grappling with soaring rental prices. So even though they raided in Atlanta, other areas are connected to this as well. At the heart of this investigation is RealPage, a software and consulting firm that allegedly orchestrates price fixing among large corporate landlords. RealPage's system, which is owned by Thoma Bravo, one of the largest private equity firms in the U.S., provides rental price recommendations to landlords. These recommendations are based on detailed real-time data shared by landlords, including pricing, inventory, and occupancy rates. Now get this. RealPage influence is extensive, affecting rents for 70% of multifamily apartment buildings and 16 million units across the country. So they are obviously not just in Atlanta. Who knows? Maybe your apartment building, may be participating in this or may have participated in this at one point in time. The scheme allegedly works by encouraging landlords to adopt RealPage's price recommendations, which they do 80 to 90% of the time. This coordinated effort among landlords to follow the software suggestions drives up rental prices by reducing the availability of units. So this is a case of supply and demand. So if they say there is a limitation on the available units, then obviously that is going to drive up the demand. If the supply is low, the demand is high, and that means more money for the landlords. It goes on to say, as one of RealPage's architects reportedly stated, the goal is to prevent landlords from undervaluing their properties, thereby ensuring higher rents nationwide. Higher rents nationwide. So this is part of the reason that the rent is too damn high. Cortland Management, which owns 85,000 rental units across 13 states, is a significant player in this alleged conspiracy. The impact of such practices is starkly evident in Atlanta, where 81% of a multifamily rental unit prices are set using software, and rents have skyrocketed by 80% since 2016. This price surge has occurred despite increasing vacancy rates, which would typically lead to lower rents. The adoption of RealPage's pricing recommendations by numerous landlords between 2015 and 2017, followed by RealPage's acquisition of its main rival, Lease Rent Option, in 2017, has given it unparalleled control over rental pricing. How many of you live in a state or city where you do not have rent control? That's me, right? So we don't have rent control. At one point, Boston did have rent control. They got rid of that. How many of you live in a city where there is no rent stabilization? That's also me. There's no rent stabilization in Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, any of those areas, the Boston area, which means that landlords can increase the rent as much as they want. So one year, if it's time to renew your lease, they could increase it by $100. The next year, they could say we're increasing it by $300. It happens. I see some hands in the chat. Zach, the Celtics guy. Zach, you're here. You know. Cynical said, yep, Nolan. Yeah. So you guys know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. It goes on to say the DOJ's investigation isn't limited to Cortland and Real Page. It has expanded to include dozens of property owners and managers across the country. The investigation has escalated from a civil matter to a criminal probe, reflecting the seriousness of the allegations. The DOJ and the Federal Trade Commission are key players in this crackdown and on anti-competitive behavior. And it's not just anti-competitive behavior, it's greed. Let's be real, greed. RealPage and its clients are already facing multiple lawsuits, a class action lawsuit by renters, as well as lawsuits by attorney generals in DC, Arizona, and North Carolina, allege that RealPage and its clients conspired to limit the supply of rental units and raise prices. RealPage denies any wrongdoing, asserting that their software is designed to be legally compliant. However, a federal judge in Tennessee has allowed much of the class action case to proceed, indicating that the allegations of price fixing are substantial enough to warrant further examination. Let's dive into Rhode Island in just a second. Angelique, my apartment got bought out and the rent increased by $200. You guys have seen it happening all around you. All of these expensive apartments, the rents continuing to increase, where some of these apartments, you know damn well, they should not be priced at $2,000 for a one bedroom, but it's happening. Rhode Island. This investigation is particularly relevant to renters in Rhode Island. According to a report by Rent, Providence experienced the highest year-over-year change in rent prices in the U.S., with a 16.18% increase from March 2023 to March 2024. The metro's median rent price reached $2,618, making Providence the ninth most expensive metro in the study. This sharp increase in rents is part of a broader trend that has seen rental prices in Providence climb from $1,845,000 in February 2019 to $2,743,000 in February of 2024. Let me tell you a little snippet about Rhode Island. First of all, I don't think that any apartment in Rhode Island should be priced over $2,600. The reality is, most of the jobs in New England are where? They're in Boston. Second after that would be Worcester. Yes, there's jobs in Providence, but not as many as you would think. And that's one of those things you find out when you come up here. When I moved to New England, I was surprised that the job market in Providence is not good. Rhode Island, the state, does not have a good economy. Right. So there have been a lot of layoffs. At one point, a couple of years ago, they even laid off police officers in Rhode Island because, again, the economy in Rhode Island is just not good. It's not one of those states that a lot of people want to move to. So how do people end up there? Right. You're either from there, you have generations of families that are from Rhode Island, or maybe you come there for college. So if you go to Brown University, you may end up there because of that. Maybe you get a job like right after or whatever. But for the most part, you can see it. Like if you go to Rhode Island, you can see, you're like, damn, like somebody just let this state go. Like it's true. The economy is really bad. Mr. Worthless said, I understand Rhode Island is very corrupt. Well, if I remember correctly, I think the mayor, I have to double check this. Years ago, I think the mayor of Rhode Island was busted for racketeering. Like there is corruption there, right? So it goes on to say the Real Page investigation shines a light on how algorithmic price fixing can distort rental markets, leading to higher costs for renters. By using sophisticated software to coordinate pricing decisions among landlords, Real Page allegedly undermines the competitive market forces that would typically keep rents in check. This practice not only affects renters' wallets, but also exacerbates the broader issue of housing affordability, which is a critical concern for many Americans. So we can point fingers at Real Page, we can point fingers at Cortland, whoever you want. But the reality is, this does not happen unless you have a capitalist system. Under a capitalist system, this is allowed to happen. So it's just one of those things. And this is why I've said before, everyone deserves to have a roof over their head. Food, clothing, shelter. Everyone deserves those things. But when you have capitalism in a capitalist system, these things are allowed to happen. I got to check my connection here, guys, just to make sure I'm stable. My connection is stable, but I think so. It's been wonky with me, but it looks like it's going for a while. I think one of these windows I might have to close. So that's something to think about, the capitalist system and how we are affected with that. Now, when I first saw this, I said to myself, well, I'll be damned. The FBI actually did something. Thank you, Black Ronin. Buddy is who you're talking about, Sabby. And yes, Rhode Island is extremely corrupt. That was his name. Yes, he was busted for racketeering. Kid you not. Kid you not. So this brings up a bigger issue. Obviously, this is corrupt. Obviously, this is wrong. And when you think about what these landlords are doing, how they have been getting over on the workers, because that's how I want to frame this, getting over on the workers, getting over on people like you. I want to bring you back to that out of touch, the out of reach housing report of 2023. Now, Rhode Island, they said these average apartments now being priced at $2,600. Let's bring up this report. If you have never seen this before, some of you have seen me show this, but newbies may have not. National Low Income Housing Coalition. This is the out of reach, the high cost of housing report. Okay. For 2023, 2024's report will be available in July. Let's just hover over Rhode Island because I want to show you something. That little state right over there. Boop. Rhode Island. Rhode Island is number 16th in the highest housing wage. That's the rank for Rhode Island, that little itty bitty state. You need to make $27.78 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental home in Rhode Island. You need to work 85 hours a week if you make minimum wage to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Now think about what I just told you about the apartments being priced at $2,000, $600,000. How many people in Rhode Island are making $27.78 an hour? How many people? Because do you think the people that work at Dunkin' Donuts, do you think they're making that price? I doubt it. I doubt it. No. Starbucks, McDonald's, even some of the people that work in the hotels, in the hotel industry, are not making $27.78 an hour. So they are basically pricing these houses and the apartments, actually. They are fixing rent prices for these apartments in such a way where the average working class person cannot afford it. They're not even going to meet the income requirement. Don't you have to have what they say, 3 months rent up front at most places? or first, last security. Is that what we're calling it these days? Isn't that what you really need to have? So there's that. Some apartment complex will tell you need to make 3 times the rent. So if the rent continues to increase and your salary doesn't increase to adjust for that, where are you going to live? Fat Man TV said fast food is laying people off by the thousands due to low sales and higher wages. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Now that's just Rhode Island, but we can look, California is the worst one. California. They are number 1 in the highest housing wage. In California, you need to make $42.25 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. I'm willing to bet a lot of people in California are not making $42 an hour. If you're making minimum wage, you need to work 109 hours a week to afford a 2-bedroom rental. And listen, fam, it's not just the blue states, because that's kind of easy to eye. But honestly, check out Florida. Florida is red. It's no longer a swing state. Florida is ranked 11th in the highest housing wage. You need to earn $30.59 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental in Florida. You need to work 111 hours a week if you make minimum wage to afford that 2-bedroom rental. So let me tell you something, okay? Ron DeSantis, as much as he wants to complain about the blue states, his state isn't faring too well either. Look at Alaska, also a red state. This is ranked 18th. You need to make $26.32 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental in Alaska. You have to work 97 hours a week if you make minimum wage in Alaska to afford a 2-bedroom rental home. Keep in mind, again, this is the report for 2023. The 2024 report will be released in July. So the point that I'm trying to get across to you folks is not just that landlords have been corrupt. The point that I'm trying to get across to you is that this is not a red-blue issue. This is a us versus them issue. And by us, I mean the 99%. There's only so much gentrification that you can do until it gets to the point where people have nowhere else to go. Because when people start to migrate to other areas, those states become expensive too. And I'll give you another example. At one point in time, remember, people were moving to Florida because it was cheaper to live there. See what happens when an influx of people, they start to move to another place? That place becomes expensive as well. You can also see this happening with North Carolina. North Carolina used to be a lot cheaper. I know, I lived there. Ranked 29th. You need to make $21.54 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental home in North Carolina. You need to work 119 hours a week if you make minimum wage to afford that 2-bedroom. Not just East Coast. These are the easy ones to point out. Like my state, Massachusetts, we all know it's expensive as hell here. We're ranked 3rd. Those are the easier ones to point out. But I want you to pay attention to some of the ones that you may not suspect, like Texas. Even Texas is 21st in the highest housing wage. You need to earn $25.06 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental in Texas. So you see, guys, the solution, and I've said this again, the solution is not, well, just move to Michigan. Just move to Colorado. Colorado was ranked 8th. People did these things. People moved to Colorado. People moved to Nevada. How is Nevada in the dark blue? Nevada is ranked 15th. So we have a bigger problem on our hands. Now, there is always Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is ranked 52nd because Puerto Rico, you only need to make $10.36 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. However, I'm willing to bet you if an influx of people move to Puerto Rico within the next 2 years, I'm willing to bet you that will increase because the demand is increasing. So the solution is never to tell someone just move to a cheaper state. Because once upon a time, when I lived in North Carolina was that cheaper state. Not so much anymore. Someone was asking, what website is this? I just want to pull up to the top. Whee! This is called the National Low Income Housing Coalition. It is the Out of Reach, the High Cost of Housing Report. Okay. And it's cool because you can click on different states. Like if I clicked on, let's go to Nevada. If I clicked on Nevada, where it says more info, if I clicked on that, I could see more detailed information here, right? Number of renter households over 480,000. You can see all of that. And if you scroll down, you can also see the fair market rent for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, right? So, and you can download the full report of Nevada. You can do this with each state. I'll put this in the chat for you guys too. So you can look at this on your own time and check out your own state and see what's happening around those hoods. But it even tells you like the income levels, right? Affordable rent. But what I want to show you too is occupation, because in Nevada, it'll show you, how many people work in dining room and cafeteria attendants and bartender helpers. So we'll call it the service industry. How many people work in that field? How many people work with gambling? So you got Vegas there. So a little bit different. How many people waitresses, right? How many people are bartenders, fast food workers? What do you notice, guys? Right? Cashiers. This is why I said before, the average middle-aged woman in the United States is a retail worker. A lot of people in this country work in the food and service industry or retail. They don't pay well. So yes, the landlords have been getting over. They really have. But they're doing it because they're allowed to do so. There's a lot of greed. And you also need to talk about some of these investors that are buying up apartment buildings from landlords, just cash, and kicking those people out. That's been happening in Boston for years. Where is everyone supposed to go? Makes you wonder. Let's go to some of the comments here. Actually, let me put this in the chat as well, because I think you guys want this site. Did that take me to Nevada? Yeah, I'll put this here. That way you can have that as well. It's a great report to have. Let's go to some of the comments. Gabby says, I currently live in North Carolina. When I arrived over a decade ago, the rent was reasonable, but currently the rental price is high. Yeah. Oh, yeah. A big influx of people came in to move into Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. It's expensive. North Carolina is no longer cheap. And this is what happens. I saw an article recently written by the Boston Globe, where they were telling young kids, like all the young college graduates, to move to Michigan and Wisconsin. Great. Okay. So then Michigan and Wisconsin will become expensive as well, because that's what will happen when you have an influx of people come in. These are the kind of things that we need to think about, right?